again, I think he's more likely to go in the 20s than in the top 5. And now there's a big gap between those two, 6 through 19. It would be, neither option. But I think that the media and maybe a few anonymous scouts and coaches are focused on his bravado. And I think the teams are focused on, do we think this guy is a day one NFL quarterback, or do we think he has, if he's not a day one NFL quarterback, high-level tools to be our franchise quarterback? And if you're drafted in the top 5 or even in the top 10, you're expected to start, if not day one, very quickly. You know what I mean? All of them did. Every single guy that was drafted, we had 6 first-round picks drafted. Every single one that was healthy started this year. Even Penix, by the end of the year. And so I just have real questions about Shedeur's ultimate upside as a quarterback, not the person. And so I think that it is very likely that Cam Ward goes 1, 2, or 3, and another quarterback is not taken in the top 5, in the top 10, and it goes.
I think teams, too, I do think some teams are worried about Deion. Like, we know there was that report about the Giants, and especially if they're not sure about Shedeur. Like, if they're sure about him, they probably just overlook it. If you have questions about him, then you're probably worried about his dad being such a presence. But from years of covering the league, like, I have great respect. This is all the major sports. For the knowledge of the coaches, the front office, the scouts. I'm just covering the leagues. You learn that. Except, and I'm not saying, this is the one area.
Drafting quarterbacks?
Yeah. And it's not because I don't think guys know what they're talking about. It's just such a, for lack of a better term, crapshoot. That's a little of an overstatement. But, guys loved, and Trevor may become something, but Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston, Sam Bradford. And they didn't love Lamar and Jalen Hurts. It's just, and I'm not even basing that on style of play or race or anything like that, but my point is just, it is a crapshoot with these quarterbacks. And again, I know that's an overstatement. There are things you see, and I get it, some of the tape, Shedeur does need to get rid of the ball faster and stuff like that. But what I do, when I watch him, my eye test tells me he hasn't had a great offensive line. He hasn't had a running game. He has had good receivers.
Really good.
But he has made stuff happen with some disadvantages. And I think I like what I see in him, and I think I think he may fall. But I think it'll be a mistake, and I think he'll be a good quarterback.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by the fall at all, because this is the normal progression of the draft process. So this college season ends. There's all these mock drafts that come out. It's before really the coaches gotten involved in the NFL draft process. It's before the draft process has really gotten rolling at all. So these guys are elevated initially, and then everybody starts digging in, the wheel starts rolling, and some guys are going to fall and some guys are going to pop, whether it's Trey Lance, who pops up, or Zach Wilson, who pops up. And this year there'll be 2 or 3 quarterbacks that pop up that you don't think should be there, and there's always the guy that falls. And it is a crapshoot. I respect what he's done. I think that the bravado to me is more confidence than arrogance, so I think that's positive. I think his dad is an asset, but I could see how a lot of coaches, especially coaches in vulnerable spots, could view that as a threat. So I get all of that stuff. But the good news for Shedeur is this happens every year. And just pull up this graphic. Here's 3 really good examples of guys who are projected to go high. Lamar goes 32, Aaron Rodgers goes 24, Big Ben goes 11. They all have really, really great careers. So whether you fall or don't fall, sometimes that's the best thing that can happen to a guy, because they end up with a team that's much better prepared to let them either sit and watch, or they have a much better team, so they're able to go out and truly show who they are, than the guys who get drafted high to lousy teams that get beat up for a year or 2 before they can pop.
Like poor Trevor.
You're so down on Trevor. Niners, Rams, then a 3-way tie with Broncos, Steelers, Patriots, and then the Chiefs coming in at 8th. Brew, you're our resident Packers fan, although you haven't made your 2025 predictions just yet. Do you want to see J-Lo with Devontae?
Well, I wouldn't mind it. He's not a great receiver anymore, but he's been great, and I think he's still very good. Right now, they've got a group of good receivers. Can any of them be great? Who knows? But Devontae knows what it takes to be great, and I think he could help, maybe tutor, mentor those guys while still being productive himself. So I like that. But you know what? With DK Metcalf available now, I kind of like that even better if I'm Green Bay. I like Metcalf.
Well, there's not the connection. There's not the history.
Yeah, but but Rodgers is gone. It's not like he's not there. But I don't hate Devontae there. If they end up with Devontae Adams, I'll be fine with that. But I'd probably rather get DK Metcalf.
Do you like Jordan Love? Because you tagging him with the J-Lo moniker makes me feel like you hate him.
No, I love J-Lo.
The fact that it's gained some momentum here is rough. Here's where I struggle with this is they had 4 receivers last year, 3 receivers and a tight end who got 70 targets. So it was egalitarian. Everybody had an opportunity, and they're all young and they're all growing together. So now you bring in a guy like Devontae. If he's a great mentor, if he's a positive force, if he's all those things in the room, that could be a really good thing because he can help nurture those guys along. But I don't know if he is or not. I don't have that familiarity with him. If he's a guy that comes in who's used to getting well over 100 targets, and now he wants all the targets, and now he puts the pressure on a young J-Lo, impressionable J-Lo, to throw him the ball, and all of that pressure that you put on the defense because you're willing to go to anybody, now you're pushing the ball to one guy because if he doesn't get it, he's not happy about it. I think that could be detrimental, and he has a different cachet than all those other guys.
Yeah.
So if he is a negative guy, that can really affect the dynamic of that room.
Yeah, I know it's going to sound weird. I don't really look at receiver as a mentor position. I think receivers want theirs almost at all times. And I think that is partly what makes guys great, is that I think it's kind of more long-winded than we have time for here. Because it's such a dependent position, you can be the best receiver in the world, and if you have terrible quarterback play or you can't show it, that it generates, or it creates, if there wasn't already there, kind of a needed selfishness that then when you do become awesome manifests itself in what I think we're seeing right now with A.J. Brown, which is, I think it's on the board, A.J. Brown is traded this offseason.
Hello.
Oh,
you read any reports?
I'm sure the Patriots would love him. And by the way, I think that's a good example, and I'll try to land the plane back with that, Devontae. I don't think A.J. Brown would be sad about that. I think if A.J. Brown's like, so I'm going from the Super Bowl champion to maybe the worst team in the league, but I am going to get 150 targets, and we have a traditional ring. Right, I got my ring. And so I think if Devontae were watching, he would have taken issue with one thing significantly. Bruce saying he's not great anymore. I think he still thinks he is great.
I think he is. You think he is great?
I think he thinks he's still great. I agree with you. I think he's good to very good. I don't think he's even in the argument for top 5 receiver, where he lived for a long time. But they were 2-4 when he signed with the Jets, and he and Rodgers threw a little Zoom party on McAfee, coming to save the day. Here's what I was surprised that wasn't in the odds, nor in Bruce's answer. It feels to me, unless